When you picture the perfect swimming spot for a scorching summer day, it probably looks a little something like this. Or maybe even this. But these water holes hide a darker side. That first spot is in North Marion County, Florida, where 16-year-old Rashawn Keontae Reese drowned earlier this summer. And that second one is in Minnesota, where Emmanuel Seward was found 30 feet below the surface last July, becoming the 5th person to drown here since 2015. Across the country, pools like these lure people in every summer and leave behind a rapidly growing death toll. And that's because these aren't natural lakes, but flooded quarries, which is a problem because quarry pools aren't like other bodies of water. They bring a multitude of hidden risks and deadly qualities, the kind most of us would never even consider until it's too late. But here's where it gets really strange. Statistically, it isn't weak swimmers who are most at risk. 2/3 of drowning victims are strong swimmers, and more than half die within just 10 feet of the shoreline. So, what exactly makes quarries so deceptively deadly? And how can you avoid making the same fatal mistakes? Let's find out. For centuries, quarries have provided the stones that have built our world. Over time, they got bigger and deeper, some plunging hundreds of feet below the water table. The Kennecott copper mine in Utah, for example, drops more than 1,200 meters, making it the deepest open-pit mine in the world. And this is where our problems begin. Because just like digging a hole at the beach, once you go deep enough, water starts to rush in. Groundwater seeps in from below, rain pours in from above, and the only way to keep a mine dry is by running giant pumps, forcing that water out. But eventually the mine shuts down. And when the pumps are switched off, the quarry fills up. In just a matter of months, a pit hundreds of feet deep can transform into a perfectly still pool. From the surface, it looks like a natural lake. But in reality, it's a flooded industrial site that was never intended for us to swim in. And there are a lot of these. In fact, there are more than 500,000 abandoned mines scattered across America, many of which are quarries. Some have been turned into dedicated swimming spots staffed with lifeguards and safety equipment, but most were deserted decades ago, long before anyone imagined they'd become a hotspot for summer parties or viral stunts. And the dangers in quarry lakes are unlike anything you'd find at a beach. Sure, there's no rip currents or shark attacks, but the risks here are far less obvious and just as deadly. Perhaps the most visible threat is what's been left behind. Quarry floors are a graveyard of their industrial past. Twisted rebar, rusting cables, even submerged machinery. One wrong kick and you could be tangled or impaled on something that's been rotting underwater for decades. Even the ground itself is a potential hazard. Quarries are often cut in steeped levels, and what starts as wading in shallow water can drop 50 feet without warning. Then there's the water quality. Some quarries, like this infamous pool in Buxton, England, have gone viral for their dreamy turquoise color. But that isn't natural. It's lime waste leaching into the pool, raising the pH to 11.3, nearly as alkaline as bleach. Swim here and you risk chemical burns, eye damage, and even internal injuries. Then sometimes, you don't even need to get in the water to die at these spots.
18-year-old Jay Harris fell to his death when walking in a quarry with friends. He was close to the quarry edge when the ground gave way beneath him and he fell 100 feet.
But the single biggest threat here is something you can't even see. Compared to your average lake, quarry pools are shockingly cold. They're primarily fed by underground springs or aquifers. So many quarry pools sit at 60 degrees Fahrenheit at the surface and as low as 40 degrees Fahrenheit just 10 feet down, even during the peak of summer. And when you jump into water that cold, it isn't hypothermia that kills you. It's cold shock, a series of involuntary responses responsible for 60% of all cold water-related deaths. The first response you'll experience is a gasp reflex. The moment your skin receptors are submerged in cold water, you'll inhale sharply. And if your head is under, that single gasp can pull 2 or 3 liters of water straight into your lungs, enough to drown you instantly. That initial gasp is then followed by uncontrollable hyperventilation. At this point, even good swimmers are unable to hold their breath for more than a couple of seconds. Breathing spikes up to 4 times the norm, heart rate and blood pressure surge, and in vulnerable people, that's enough to trigger immediate heart failure. You'll also feel an immediate sense of panic and stress due to the adrenaline released from your body's fight or flight response, while at the same time, blood vessels shut down to protect your vital organs, starving your muscles of oxygen, and ultimately leading to physical incapacitation, which makes swimming nearly impossible. All of this happens in the first few minutes in water below 60 degrees Fahrenheit. And if you survive that, then hypothermia starts to creep in as your core body temperature drops below 95 degrees Fahrenheit. After 30 minutes, your strength begins to disappear, your awareness fades, and eventually drowning becomes inevitable. And with the danger these pools pose to life, you'd think they would be fenced off, cleaned up, or at the very least marked. And technically that's exactly what's supposed to happen. When companies begin blasting these holes in the ground, they're required to post what's called a reclamation bond, insurance money to guarantee the site will be made safe once the mining is done. Fill the pit, fence it off, restore the land. That's the theory anyway. But in reality, that doesn't happen. The cleanup costs are often 10 times more than the bond, or worse still, there was never a bond in the first place because the quarry predates modern regulations by decades. The 1977 Surface Mining Reclamation Act was supposed to fix this, creating a federal trust fund to restore abandoned mines. But today, hundreds of thousands of them remain in unsafe conditions. Instead, what usually happens is that local officials post warning signs only after someone has already died, or even worse, families of victims pay out of pocket to erect signs desperate to warn others about the death traps left behind. Yet despite the danger, the reality is that people will continue swimming in quarry lakes. And if you're determined to take a dip and want to avoid becoming a statistic, then you need to be prepared. So before you even touch the water, first figure out how you're going to get out. Sounds obvious, but in a quarry that's easier said than done. As for getting in, jumping is infinitely more fun, but also a lot more dangerous. The smart move is to slowly acclimatize. Wade in, splash water on your wrists and the back of your neck. These pulse points help your body adjust before you're fully submerged. Also, bring something that floats. A cooler, an inner tube, even a pool noodle. It doesn't matter if you swam varsity or have crossed the English Channel. If you start to lose control, something buoyant can mean the difference between making it out and not. Oh, and don't stay in cold water too long. Over-acclimatization can mask the signs of hypothermia. Just look at Jason Zerganos, a man who swam the English Channel 4 times. In 1953, he attempted the North Channel of the Irish Sea, and despite not showing any signs, just 3 miles from finishing the 22-mile swim, he lost consciousness due to hypothermia and died. But even if you do everything right, there's still a chance you'll experience cold shock. And when that happens, what you do in the first 60 seconds decides your fate.
After about a minute, you regain that control, and now you're through the most dangerous period of immersion. But you've got to do the right things in the first minute.
That's Professor Mike Tipton of Portsmouth University, one of the world's leading experts in cold water immersion. And if you want to survive cold shock, here's what he says you need to do. First, don't panic. Resist every instinct to scream and thrash around. You'll be hyperventilating, your muscles will be seizing, and flailing will only tire you out or force water into your lungs. Instead, do something that feels completely wrong. Float. Lean back, tilt your head, keep your airways out of the water, and float as comfortably as you can. Professor Tipton calls this float to live, and it's become a worldwide campaign because it works. While you're floating, focus on controlling your breathing with long exhales, as this will help to slow your heart rate. And for the next 60 to 90 seconds, do nothing. Don't try to swim yet. Very soon, your breathing will settle and your muscles will start responding again. Only then do you have a real shot at making it to safety. And remember, it doesn't matter how many cold plunges you've done, every time you step into a quarry lake, you're starting from zero.